No way they did it to us again! Jujutsu Kaisen is absolutely insane right now with Yuji mastering reverse curse technique against full power Sukuna. Clues that characters who we think are dead might not really be dead. And that twist at the very end was incredible and jaw-dropping, so let's get into it. In the previous chapter, we saw just how impressed Sukuna was with Higuruma's abilities, and Sukuna even said that Higuruma could use his curse technique almost as effectively as he himself. Sukuna then acknowledged Higuruma as a worthy opponent, so knowing Gege, this was a sure sign that poor Higuruma was about to die. Now, Yuji was also there during the Sukuna fight with Higuruma, and Sukuna had only the opposite to say about Yuji. Far from acknowledging him, Sukuna mocked Yuji and called him boring. Then he delivered a serious injury to Yuji's abdomen, which took Yuji out of the fight for the time being. Poor Higuruma even learned to use reverse curse technique on the spot, and he managed to stab Sukuna through the hand with the executioner's sword. But Sukuna just cut off his hand and then kept going. Higuruma then seemingly decided to sacrifice his own life in order to bestow the power of wielding the executioner's sword onto Yuji. And Yuji, by the way, had somehow managed to recover from his injury and get back into the fight. We weren't sure how exactly Higuruma was planning to make the transfer to Yuji, but it seemed like he might have made some sort of binding vow where he gives up his own life in exchange for Yuji keeping the executioner's sword after his death. The chapter ended with Yuji seemingly using the executioner's sword to stab Sukuna in the back, but in my review I warned you guys not to fall for it. There is no way that Gege was going to make it so easy. The latest chapter confirms my words immediately, as Yuji's attack has no effect on Sukuna, and then the sword just kind of like shrinks and disappears from Yuji's hand. Yuji isn't sure what's happening and he calls out Higuruma's name, but he doesn't have much time to analyze the situation because Sukuna immediately attacks him with a barrage of punches. Sukuna punches Yuji, slashes him, and Yuji is thrown backwards. Nevertheless, Sukuna is impressed by the fact that Yuji is still alive. The fact that the injury he suffered at the hands of Sukuna in the last chapter didn't kill him means that Yuji almost certainly managed to master reverse curse technique sometime in the past month. Sukuna then sees Wee Wee or Pee or whatever his name is preparing to use his teleportation technique as Kirara holds up Higuruma's body right next to Wee Wee. Sukuna then concludes that the sorcerers have been using teleportation to take the injured off the battlefield and bring them to Shoko, because Shoko is able to use reverse curse technique to heal not only herself, but also others. And this confirms that yeah, Pee's curse technique is indeed teleportation. Now the fact that the sorcerers are taking the time and the risk to teleport Higuruma to Shoko tells me that he might still be alive. Otherwise, what would be the point of risking your own life to teleport a dead body? This might also explain why Yuji's attack against Sukuna was ineffective. If Higuruma was prepared to sacrifice his life to allow Yuji to wield the executioner's sword, possibly through some sort of binding vow, then if Higuruma didn't actually die, the power to wield the sword would not be successfully transferred to Yuji. And I mean, if this is what's happening, all of it makes sense strategically. The sorcerers are using teleportation to take the injured off the battlefield and heal them so that they can live to fight another day. That makes a lot of sense, but taking dead bodies and trying to teleport them when you could be struck down by Sukuna at any moment doesn't make nearly as much sense. Sukuna then says something extremely interesting. He tells us that Gojo's corpse vanished after Sukuna apparently killed him, and it must have disappeared because of these people. They must have also transferred Gojo to Shoko. I will come back to this crazy Gojo thing in a little bit because it could be huge, but Sukuna then moves on from this topic because he concludes that Yuji wasn't healed by Shoko, which means that in just a month, Yuji must have learned to use reverse curse technique himself, and so he was the one who healed himself after that massive injury. Upon learning this, Sukuna surprises even himself by the fact that he seems to be upset at Yuji's success. Even Yuji is caught off guard by Sukuna's uncharacteristic behavior, because Sukuna appears like he is deep in thought and spacing out instead of giving all of his focus to the fight. Sukuna himself isn't even sure what is bothering him so much. It shouldn't be the death of Kenjaku or anything along those lines, since he doesn't let his mood depend on other people. For Sukuna, other people are just some amusement to fill up his time while he's in this world, so why should he care about what happens to any of them? The key factor here appears to be Yuji. Yuji bothers Sukuna so much because Sukuna spent time coexisting with Yuji inside the same body. So Sukuna feels like he knows Yuji better than he knows other people. And the one thing that Sukuna keeps coming back to with Yuji is his fierce determination to never give up. No matter how many times Yuji experiences defeat and tragedy and heartbreak, He just keeps coming back and giving it all he's got. Despite being a massive underdog, Yuji keeps tirelessly fighting on against all odds. This is Yuji's ideal, his purpose, his reason for being. And as someone who can never be an underdog because he is literally the strongest sorcerer in history, Sukuna can never experience the courage, determination, and purpose of someone like Yuji. Because he spent time inside Yuji's body, Sukuna knows that Yuji's ideals and determination are genuine. He knows that Yuji is not pretending. And so Sukuna knows that Yuji is the real deal. He is the underdog warrior striving with all of his being and risking everything to defeat a villain much stronger than he is. And this is the kind of thrill that Sukuna himself can never experience. I think this is why Yuji bugs Sukuna so much. I think Sukuna is a little bit jealous of Yuji. And so the villain is determined to destroy Yuji both mentally and physically. He wants to not only defeat Yuji, he wants to also crush his hope and his ideals. Then, suddenly, a new rule is added to the culling game. Rule 15 states that Megumi Fushiguro will be the one with the authority to activate the merger between Master Tengen and the rest of humanity. This seems to have been Kenjaku's final act, his insurance policy in case he died before his dream of human evolution could be realized. Now, of course, Sukuna is currently inside Megumi's body, so he has the authority to initiate the merger. But the sorcerers didn't initially believe that Sukuna would ever want to pursue Kenjaku's goals. Sukuna is not a mad scientist who wants to experiment on humanity out of curiosity. So hopefully Sukuna will have no interest in finishing what Kenjaku started. Unfortunately, it seems that Sukuna might have been the successor of Kenjaku's will after all. Sukuna says to Yuji that first he is going to kill him, after that he's going to kill all the players in the culling game, and then he will in fact allow Tengen to merge with humanity. Depending on what kind of entity will emerge from this merger, Sukuna wants to play with this new entity. In other words, Sukuna is not interested in human evolution per se like Kenjaku was, but he is interested in fighting the ultimate opponent. And this entity that will emerge from the merger of Tengen with the rest of humanity could be the ultimate opponent that Sukuna has been looking for. But before Sukuna can put a stop to Yuji's determination once and for all, the one and only Yuta Okotsu shows up out of nowhere and attacks Sukuna. As he destroys like half a city block with his sword, Yuta apologizes for being late, and then he engages Sukuna in a brutal battle. Sukuna makes it clear to Yuta that he better do his best, because if he doesn't kill Sukuna now, Sukuna will kill all his friends and classmates. And just as the King of Curses is getting cocky and threatening Yuta, Rika emerges and violently attacks Sukuna as the narrator declares that the King of Curses and the Queen of Curses are finally going to battle it out to see who will sit on the throne in the end. Now, of course, we all knew that after Gojo's apparent death, Yuta and Rika would have to join the battle against Sukuna if they want the sorcerers to have even a small chance of actually winning against the King of Curses. Personally, I thought that Yuta would join even earlier, but he surprised me by first suddenly killing Kenjaku and then rushing back to the site of the battle with Sukuna. Higuruma seems like he might still be alive, but he's effectively out of the picture for now, so it's all about Yuta and Yuji versus Sukuna. Although we might get some possible assistance from side characters like Kusakabe and Ino. Personally, I would still love to see Yuta, the expert swordsman, wielding the executioner's sword against Sukuna, if that is even possible at this point, but we'll have to wait and see how the battle is going to go down. I am super excited to see what Rika, Yuta, and Yuji together can do against Sukuna. And if you're excited as well, drop a like and comment right now to let me know. I can't wait to see what happens next. Okay, now back to the part about Gojo's body disappearing from the battlefield and Sukuna assuming that it was taken by Shoko. As a professional Gojo coper, this was extremely interesting to me because as we know, Gojo's head was not damaged when he was quote-unquote killed by Sukuna. So there could still be some chance, however small, that Gojo, with Shoko's help, could find a way to use reverse curse technique to somehow heal himself. Maybe Shoko can do just enough to get it started, and then Gojo can do the rest, or something along those lines. I mean, we know that Yuji was literally dead for like days and then came back to life, so this kind of thing is possible in JJK. Yuji was able to do this because he made a deal with Sukuna, but Gojo's power is comparable to Sukuna's, so maybe he too can find some way to return, especially with Shoko helping him. I know I'm coping, feel free to ignore my ramblings. But if you want to continue coping with me, Check out this video where I talk about how Gojo could return from the dead as a vengeful spirit and surpass humanity just like Master Tengen. Link on screen and in the description.